Hi, this is Kendra from Pencil and Pigment, and today I wanted to talk about ratios. And we could talk about this a couple different ways. So we can talk about this in terms of pigment to water ratio when creating. So what I've done is I have a liquid watercolor, and this is an Aqua Drop by Schmincke. This is the cyan blue. And if you're curious as to why someone would specifically want this, this is the closest you can get to a printer's cyan. So if you want to create something very specific that you want to color match to the cyan ink in your printer, because our printers are CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, this would match the cyan. So instead of matching like Pantone swatch numbers and things with large printers, you can match some colors to your printer at home. Now, and this is the closest one I've ever found to actual printer cyan. So in terms of ratios, this kind of has a sort of dauber. It's not really a dropper, if you can see that. And I got this from Cheap Joe's. I'll link all the products that I'm showing here in the description box. I'm just using a studio grade watercolor paper that's 25% cotton. This is a hot press. It's very smooth. I just have a 6-pan wheel here. This is a Prado brush. It's a 2. This is just what I happen to find. Now, ratios. Ratios for varying hues can be very, very helpful. So this is sort of a 1-to-1. 1 part of the liquid in here to 1 part additional water added by me from my jar. This would be 1-to-2 or 2-to-1. This is 1 part of the pigment from here to 2 parts water. This is about a 3-to-1. This is about a 4-to-1. Now, why would you bother being scientific about your ratios? Well, if you're having trouble creating a wider value range, it can be very beneficial to measure out what you're doing. Just like baking a cake and following a recipe very specifically so it rises a certain way, you can sort of mathematically and scientifically measure out your watercolor for a different type of success. So if you're somebody that likes things very specific and finds comfort in understanding exact amounts, this method is probably for you. Also, if you're looking to color match something, if you're creating something now and you want to color match it later, this can be very, very helpful. You would just want to sort of write these down like a recipe in a journal somewhere. So I'm going to start with the most diluted. And if you're creating something like atmospheric perspective, where you are drawing something like trees and you have some in the background and you use the lightest color first and then you come in with a darker color to denote that this tree is closer in the foreground, and you keep getting darker and darker and larger with some of your trees as they get closer to you. This is a great way to achieve atmospheric perspective and understanding a value range in color. So that's what this sort of ratio is. Understanding the amount of water you're putting to pigment when you go to create your art, your illustration, your project, so you can understand foreground, middle ground, background, and it can greatly help and add to the success of your creations. Now, another ratio I want to explain, and I have this all drawn out here, is something that looks like this. Now, there are cups and things you can buy at hardware stores that have ratios all laid out for paint mixing with resins and different binders and things. I want to show you this product very specifically because on the side it says PB 15:3. This is pigment blue and it's been ratioed 15:3. Now this is a very different ratio than we were using for water for color mixing. This is the ratio that's in this bottle. This bottle is 15 parts water to 3 parts pigment. Now, if you are mixing something, and I think I'm going to use colored pencil. Let's see, how am I going to do this? Okay, let's use a brush. And you're doing 1-to-1 ratios here. And I'm just going to take a color from here. So 1-to-1 ratio would be 1 part pigment, and I'm going to have the colored pencil represent my water to 1 part water. This is a 1-to-1 ratio. For the amount of pigment you have in, the amount of water you add. So if it's 2 parts pigment, ignore this line, and you would have 2 parts water. Okay? That's a 1-to-1 ratio. The amount you have is the amount you have. A 2-to-1 looks a little different. You would have your 2 parts of pigment and your 1 part water. Okay? So if there are 4 parts in here worth of pigment, you would have 2 parts water. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. So you would count by 2s, would greatly help in doing something like this. 2-to-1. A 4-to-1 is just that. It would be 4 parts pigment to 1 part color. 1 part water. This is a 4-to-1 ratio. So when I say in this bottle that it is 15 parts water, this is all water, all the way down, it's all water, and then there's 3 parts pigment. That's a 15-to-3. That's how you understand what these liquid watercolors mean when they print a ratio on their label. Now, 15-to-3, visually looking at it like this, you're like, that is a ton of water to hardly any pigment. 15-to-3 is actually a pretty good amount of pigment in a liquid watercolor. I hope this video helped you. I hope this explained ratios in a way that you understand. I hope that if you go to Color Mix and you're working on value ranges and different things, that you try measuring it out, especially if you're trying to color match something you're creating later. Obviously, you don't have to use liquid watercolor to utilize this effect. You can do something like drawing ink can also be used to thin with water and create different effects and create a wider value range. And if you're mixing drawing inks, maybe you're coming up with specific recipes that are 2 parts blue to 1 part red, and you want that to match and you're using greater quantity. And so you would utilize a value chart, something like this, to help you measure and understand for your recipe for writing down. So I hope this helps. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.